Summoned as a hero, Ruto was cast aside as worthless and abandoned in the demon lands. But fate dealt him an arcana no one expected, the Hanged Man. Now, with a dragon's ancient voice whispering in his mind, and a system that binds him with ominous quests, he serves the Demon King's daughter in the shadows of her castle. Is he her butler, her executioner, or the key to a power that could shatter the continent? Let's find out. This story begins in another world, called Addis. At this time, the protagonist named Sakaki Ruto was riding in a carriage in the territory of demons. The knight who controlled the horses told him that he must die here. The protagonist thought with resignation. This nightmare began a week ago. In front of him and his classmates, the goddess Iris appeared, who greeted her dear heroes in another world called Addis. She told them that various races live here, who have achieved prosperity thanks to supernatural power and magic. The whole class was perplexed. What is happening? Is this a dream? The protagonist thought in amazement. They were just sitting in class, and suddenly a powerful earthquake happened. And then, they ended up here. Iris continued, almost crying. She felt very sorry for her dear heroes, but it seemed that they all lost their lives in their original world. However, thanks to the timely summoning ceremony, they were transported to the magnificent empire of Lux. She called out to them, the glorious heroes, and said that monsters were disturbing the peace of their world. She asked them to lend them their strength to fight Altid, the Demon King. Minasi noted in surprise, a hero? The Demon King? What was she telling them? The protagonist was surprised. The original world, the summoning ceremony. Now it became clear to him, so that's it. One of his classmates asked Iris, did she mean that they were all dead? Ruto understood. They were summoned to another world to become heroes and defeat the Demon King, just like in a real game. This was definitely not a dream. In his homeworld, he didn't have a very good life, but here, he was a hero. So here he can change his life. At that moment, Isayama Seta stepped forward. He greeted the goddess, told her his name, and said he didn't quite understand where they were now, but could she please return them to their world? Iris answered him sadly. Although she could do it, upon returning there, only death awaited them. Seta sadly noted, that's how. He thanked her for her honest answer. She looked at him in bewilderment. What was he thanking her for? Seta noted, she saved them by calling them to this world, so he would give her his power. Everyone else supported the class leader, and everyone agreed to do the same. Iris thanked them. The protagonist stood to the side watching everything that was happening. He thought, and of course, he is not the main character of this story. Iris, meanwhile, suggested that they find out their status as a hero. She asked them to raise their hand up and say the word status. So everyone learned that Seta became the owner of the sacred sword. Akagaki Shuji received the status of a guardian. Seguchi Manase received the master of martial arts. Kinomoto Mutsuki became a magician of creation. Iris was surprised by the statuses of her heroes. Her assistant said that it was amazing. Just think, each of them has such strong abilities. He added that the sacred sword was possessed by the hero who founded the Lux Empire. The protagonist also raised his hand and activated the status request. The system showed him that his skill was the Hanged Man. He had no other skills. His dawn is darkened by difficulties. The path will be full of adversity, and aspirations will fail. However, he must endure and move forward further. In the end, a ray of hope will come to him. Then the system offered him a choice. Go back or choose a wish. The protagonist wondered in surprise. What kind of verse is this? Iris's assistant approached him and asked him if the hero has any problems. Ruto asked him to look at his status. When the man looked at it, he said in amazement, this is simply unbelievable. He called Iris over to look at it herself. The goddess, looking at the system, covered her mouth with her hand in surprise. She said that the protagonist's status is empty. MC, not understanding what was happening, asked her what she meant. The goddess said with an upset look, unfortunately, he is not a hero. Ruto grabbed her by the shoulders and asked her in bewilderment, what does it mean? His status is empty, and what will happen to him since he is not a hero? Seth put his hand on his shoulder and told him to calm down. The protagonist looked at him in bewilderment. His classmates were also confused. What happened? Because his status was empty, he decided to take out his anger on Iris. This is the behavior of an idiot. They knew that nothing good should be expected from him. They said something else, but much quieter. The protagonist heard the reproachful, it's Ryuto, and thought dejectedly, and here again everyone avoids him and makes fun of him. He said, since they all say that, what should he do now? Hang himself. He thought, right, it's all because of that incident. And no matter what he said, no one would believe him. Iris apologized to him for putting him in an awkward position and promised to explain everything to him later. The protagonist said embarrassedly, it was he who should apologize to her for behaving so inappropriately with her. The goddess smiled and noted, well, in order to defeat the Demon King's army, they will train for a whole year, but they give them 1 week to get used to this world. Shuji exclaimed, he can't wait to see the sights. Iris added, they will also throw a welcoming party for them later. The protagonist's classmates were happy about this. They couldn't wait to try the local cuisine. Shuji suggested that Shota go sightseeing together. Seta told him to take his time. He sighed sadly. It was a pity that there was no phone here. The protagonist stood alone, looking very depressed. He thought that he could find a new life in this world, but in the end, he did not belong here either. Iris, watching him, apologized to him with pity for how things turned out. He told her that it was nothing serious. She came closer to him and said if it was okay with him, she would like to ask him something. The goddess said, for the sake of the empire, she needed his cooperation. He asked her in surprise. This was the only thing he could be useful for, right? The goddess answered him sheepishly that it was. The protagonist told her that he agreed to help her. He thought that it was better than being with them anyway. At that moment, Mutsuki called out to him. Iris told him that they would see each other soon and retreated. The protagonist looked at his classmate. She asked him if he was not going to the party. The protagonist answered her that it was true. He did not think he would fit in there. The MC added that she was amazing, a creation mage. That was impressive. The girl looked at him sadly and asked him for forgiveness. Ryuto wondered what she was apologizing for. Mutsuki answered him that she did not stand up for him. The protagonist wondered in surprise. Was she an angel? She handed him something and told him to take it. The protagonist saw a pendant in his hand. He asked her what it was. The girl said that she created it with her ability. The magic would activate as soon as he broke the pendant. Ryuto was amazed. Unbelievable. She already knew how to use her ability. He thanked her for the gift and added that he would take care of it. She asked him what he would do now. The protagonist spoke. It seemed that even he had a task. They saved his life. It was logical that he would need to return the favor. Mutsuki asked him if she could help him with something. MC objected to her. She had training coming up, and she was talking about help. The girl was silent for a while, and then asked him if he really had to leave. She had a bad feeling about this. He smiled and jokingly noted, "Did she have one too?" He continued, "His life was supposed to end anyway. He wanted to test his strength." Mutsuki said his name sadly. He was pulled out of his memories by the rude call of the knight. He told him to get out of the carriage and unceremoniously pushed him out. The protagonist fell. The knight said, "His task is to die here." He added that seeing his body, they will think that the hero is dead. Perhaps this will serve as a good distraction. Ruto asked him, "So he is expendable, huh? How do they know if he is a hero or not? What kind of nonsense is this?" At that moment, he received a powerful blow from the knight. The warrior wished the non-hero a happy stay. Left alone, the protagonist thought dejectedly. He only wanted to be useful to someone, and in the end, he will die here. Be it his home world or this one, no one needs him, and he is good for nothing. Somehow getting up, he decided, let everyone forgive him, but he will fight to the end. Suddenly, the protagonist heard a voice in his head that asked him, because he has to do this, right? After a while, recovering from his amazement, the protagonist decided to trust this voice that sounded in his head. Several times sounded that the test was beginning. He grabbed his head and thought in surprise, what is this? It started from the moment he stepped into the territory of demons. The voice took pity on him, okay, and asked for his status. The system immediately showed his characteristics. Currently, his strength, endurance, agility, and overall physical ability score were 6 points. The magic score was excluded due to the lack of magic power. His trial was activated when the hanged man was in an unknown territory. During the trial, the restrictions on skills were removed. His wisdom allowed him to visualize his own level of vitality and physical ability. His intuition warned of danger and helped him avoid it. His insight allowed him to remain calm in dangerous situations. The protagonist thought in surprise. His current status was very different from what he had been in the castle, and his absolute calm, despite the desperate situation, must be due to insight. But what is a trial? So now he is in a dangerous situation. He was interested in the words Hanged Man, reverse tarot card. Suddenly, he felt his intuition activate. The protagonist realized that a monster was approaching him. Before he had time to think about it, the enemy appeared in front of him. The system notified him that he had encountered a bloodthirsty monkey. The details of the test were being displayed. His brain seemed to be screaming at him that he needed to run away from here as quickly as possible. The system reported the test. He needed to hold out for 30 seconds. The protagonist thought in surprise, to withstand the monster for 30 seconds, the system notified him that the reward for passing the test the first time was an increase in vitality and physical abilities. Then the system wished good luck to the hanged man. An inner voice told him to bend down, which the protagonist did. The system notified him that he had 15 seconds left. The monkey monster appeared in front of him again. Intuition told the protagonist that he needed to run. He thought that this was unrealistic. What should he do? Was there really no way to fight back? He remembered Mutsuki's gift and decided that he could resist the demon. The protagonist mentally apologized to the girl because he told her that he would take care of it. He tore the pendant off his neck, broke it, and threw it at the enemy. There was an explosion, and the protagonist was surprised to see that the monster was frozen. It looked like an ice block. The system beeped that his time was up. He was congratulated on successfully passing the test. His vitality and physical abilities were increased. Also, the system informed him that the details of a new test were being displayed. A few minutes later, he learned what he had to do: defeat a bloodthirsty monkey. MC thought hard. A new test? Should he defeat a monster? The system told him that the reward for completing it the first time would be an increase in vitality and physical abilities. With a cry for the Empire to die, the protagonist struck the frozen monkey. The system informed him that the object was defeated. He was again congratulated on the increase in vitality. The protagonist thought, even though he had become stronger, it didn't really feel that way. He noted that that he had defeated the monster. Ruto activated his status and saw that he had reached level 12, and the overall assessment of all his physical abilities was class F. He thought that now he should look for food. He spent several days searching, every now and then meeting monsters of different levels. The protagonist defeated them and stubbornly walked on, but he could not find anything edible. After a while, he swayed, his legs weakened, and he lay down on the ground. The protagonist thought, this is bad. He didn't even know how many days he had gone without food. He needed to eat something. The system notified him that an error had occurred. His death is impossible due to lack of vitality and magic power. Signs of reverse overeating have been detected. MC tiredly asked it to shut up. He didn't even know where his intuition would lead him. So why was he still living, enduring this torment? What the hell is he doing anyway? The legendary hero who will save the world. The invincible hero who can transform himself. He thought he could become whatever he wanted until that incident. The protagonist wanted to be as far away from the judgment of others as possible, so he ran non-stop in the night. But just like now, he got nowhere. In the end, he got nowhere. Suddenly, he heard a sound. Turning his head to the bushes, he was surprised. Did he see a human silhouette? I wonder who is there? Is he running from someone? What should he do? Gathering all his strength, he stood up and thought that this was not the time to hesitate. Running towards the sound, he stopped dead in his tracks, seeing an amazing sight. A girl named Lulunoa was standing in front of a huge monster. She shouted at the enemy not to come near her. He is just a bloodthirsty monkey. How dare he attack her? The monster approached her. Lulunoa spoke desperately. If only she could use magic. Someone, Dad, Zara, Nell, Fina, she asks them to help her. The protagonist clenched his fists. His intuition warned him he would die if he tried to save her. He would be finished if he took one more step. With his death, everything would end. The protagonist asked his intuition to shut its mouth and rushed to help the girl. He thought, even if he had achieved nothing in this world, and he was abandoned in such a place, but still, at least for the last time, he wanted to be useful to someone, even at the risk of his own life. The system retorted, as expected from the hanged man, to give his life for someone. MC, who appeared in front of the monster, shouted at him that he would die with him. Ruto dealt the monkey his most powerful blow, and they fell off a large cliff together. The protagonist thought he died, and as the people of the Empire wanted, the non-hero should just die. But at least he saved someone before he died. Wasn't that great? He was glad that his worthless life served some purpose. At that moment, someone started to shake him. He heard a female voice asking him, can he hear her? Let him wake up already. Opening his eyes, the protagonist saw Lulunoa leaning over him, trying to bring him back to his senses. She told him that he saved her life. She won't let him die like this. The girl gave him a fruit and told him to eat it. Ruto thought, is he sleeping? After eating the fruit, he said that it was very tasty. Lulunoa told him that she put her magic in it. He will get better soon. She continued, he hasn't come to his senses all day, so now he needs to rest until he fully recovers. Did he understand her? The protagonist said that he heard her. The girl was indignant. What disrespect! He should answer to the daughter of the Demon King that he obeys. He muttered in a weak whisper that he obeys her. She smiled and remarked that this was better. The protagonist thought that she was very cute. At that moment, the meaning of what she said to him dawned on him. He was surprised. What did she say? She is Altid's daughter? It's just crazy. He was abandoned here because he could not help in the fight against the Demon King, and now his daughter herself feeds him? Suddenly a voice in his head said, the sun. The voice added that this was unexpected. He knew that there was something in him, in the hanged man. The protagonist was surprised. What was it? The system notified him that his life and magic powers were increasing, thanks to the magic power received from the owner of the Arcana. Lulunoa, watching him, asked him, is something wrong? He was embarrassed and told her that everything was fine. But in his mind he was wondering, did she not hear the announcement? The voice told him that it was true. The girl did not hear anything. It seemed that some kind of seal was placed on her. The protagonist asked the voice, who is he anyway? And why did he start talking so suddenly? The voice noticed. It was just so interesting to watch him. He speaks for someone, but he thinks only about himself. A typical man, well done for indulging his ego. The protagonist irritably told him to shut his mouth. Lulunoa had been watching him in surprise all this time. He apologized to her and asked her, is her name Lulunoa? The girl caught herself. Right? She hadn't introduced herself to him yet. She told him her name and added that she was the first and only daughter of the great Demon King. Now let him praise her. The protagonist asked her in surprise, what was the daughter of the Demon King doing here? She told him that it was a good question. Yesterday was her birthday, and among the gifts, it seemed, there was a magic seal and a teleportation item hidden. The magic seal is an effect that prevents her from using any magic. Isn't that cruel? The protagonist agreed with her. It was even too much. He thought, you could even die from this? Lulunoa asked what his name was, and what was a person doing in the dangerous territory of demons. For her, it was like a walk in the garden. MC noticed, but she got lost in this very garden and cried, calling for someone to help. The girl said irritably, I wish you would shut up already. Ruto thought that she was too close. He hesitated, and then told her his name. The protagonist thought, Heroes were summoned to this world to defeat the Demon King. If he hadn't been abandoned here, they would have been enemies. For some reason, she found his name a little funny. He continued. She probably wouldn't believe him, but he wasn't a hero summoned from another world. Lulunoa exclaimed in surprise. From another world? Is that really true? This is amazing. She's meeting an otherworlder for the first time. The protagonist said in confusion, isn't she a demon? He thought demons didn't like heroes. The girl answered him, heroes are the strongest among humans, right? So he's strong too. The protagonist said in embarrassment, he doesn't deserve such praise. He's just an underhero. He was summoned along with his classmates, but he was the only one who wasn't a hero and was abandoned here. He can't go back there again. He continued, once he was here, he realized that he didn't want his life to end so meaninglessly, and he tried his best, but it was all in vain. No, in fact, he had tried to find something for himself before. Not as a protagonist, not as a hero. He was just looking for something that would give his life meaning. But everything was meaningless. He was just a nobody who had neither the meaning of life nor a place to live. And he saved her so that at least he wouldn't die in vain. Lulunoa, after listening to him, said sheepishly, is that so? Well, so what? It doesn't matter whether he had a personal goal or not. It doesn't change the fact that he saved her life. She continued, being Altid's daughter, she had been a target for enemies more than once. But even without knowing her face or name, he risked his life to save her. And she was very happy about it. For her, it was more than enough. He tried to object to her. The girl interrupted him, asking him, the meaning of life and a place to stay? She would give them to him. Lulunoa touched his face and said, the meaning of his life until now was to come to this world and save her. She offered him to become her butler in the castle of the Demon King and live there to protect her. The protagonist was confused. What was she saying? How self-confident do you need to be to decide everything for him like that? And yet, he was so happy now. For the first time in his life, someone needed him, and that person was the demon princess. The girl extended her hand to him and told him that this was her order. Let him live for her sake. The protagonist thought if he took her hand, he would no longer have to look for a place for himself. The protagonist took her hand and told her that he obeyed her. On the way, the princess was in a good mood and even hummed some songs. Then she said, she is the future queen of the demons. The protagonist asked her if they were sure they were on the right path. Lulunoa answered that they were. She was not mistaken. Soon, they would see her father's kingdom. She wanted to add something else, but at that moment, a monster in the form of a huge cobra appeared behind them. The protagonist bravely entered into battle with the enemy, and the monster was defeated. Covering the girl with himself, he asked her if she was okay. The princess exclaimed with admiration, which was to be expected from the butler she had chosen. The protagonist thought with embarrassment. It was all thanks to her. On the second day of accompanying the princess, he finally understood what his ability was. His trials began when he encountered monsters stronger than him, or those he had met for the first time. And then, depending on the difference in their strength, the trials were divided into two types. These were either a fight, a pacification trial, or an escape, a survival trial. After successfully passing the survival trial, his characteristics became higher. If the survival test was passed, the pacification test would begin. The more tests he passed, the stronger he became. And he survived that time, without food and water for several days, probably due to the level increase. By the way, the tests with these snakes did not begin again, since he had already defeated them several times. But still, there were many unknowns for him. He activated the status, and saw that he had reached level 82. His strength was C, endurance D, agility B, magic power D. His physical abilities were increased due to the magic power received from the sun. The overall assessment of his physical abilities was Class C. He thought that thanks to the princess's magic power, he had become much stronger. But what the word reverse meant, he did not yet know. He tried to apply this choice, but the system gave him an error due to insufficient vitality and magic power. Yes, an error occurred then, but what does that even mean? Suddenly a voice in his head said that he looked much better. With his current level in magic power, it was now possible to activate the reverse. The protagonist answered him indignantly. Didn't he have anything better to do? Okay, about the reverse, but stop making fun of him. He couldn't do anything about it. This was the first time he had been shown kindness in this world. The voice said that it was rude. He also has a personal life, okay? It's just that the two of them are so touching that he couldn't stay away. And as for who he is, oh my god. Did he forget about the cute girl who gave him the pendant? The protagonist became wary. The pendant? What was he talking about? The voice was silent, as if it wasn't there. The protagonist asked him why he had gone quiet. After a while, the voice asked him if he remembered how he defeated that first bloodthirsty monkey. MC chuckled. Of course he remembered. Then he thought, really, how did he do it? It somehow became covered in ice, and then he can't remember anything. Why? Maybe because he was exhausted at the time? The voice chuckled thoughtfully. The princess turned to the protagonist and told him to look ahead. The protagonist saw purple and black smoke in the distance. He asked her what it could be. The girl said that it was a smoke signal from the knights. It seemed like they were looking for her. She suddenly hugged him and asked him, well, are they going forward? Ruto called her by name in surprise. What was she doing? The princess noted that they needed to run forward. She was sure that if they caught up with the knights, they would find Zara there too. Looking at his puzzled expression, she laughed and said that Zara was almost her sister. The protagonist lifted the princess onto his back, applied acceleration, and they rushed forward. Lulunoa exclaimed in admiration. They were moving so fast. He was simply incredible. The protagonist asked her to hold on tightly in response. He thought the girl wanted to meet her knights, but would they accept him? He wouldn't be surprised if they tried to kill him on the spot. The princess told him that once they got to her house, she would introduce him to her father, and after that, she would introduce him to her Zara and Nell. The girl added, he was her benefactor, so as long as he kept his back straight, everything would be fine, and she would take care of the rest. MC realized that when he was with her, all his fears seemed in vain. Had he finally found his place? Suddenly, his intuition told him that he needed to jump. The protagonist jumped without thinking, and the allies found themselves in front of the monster. The princess exclaimed, "Where did this idiot wolf come from? They need to run away from here as soon as possible." The protagonist apologized to her and said, it seemed too late to do so. Looking into the wolf's eyes, he thought, if he looked away from him, he would rush at them. The system informed him that he had encountered an enemy. The details of the test were displayed. Then followed that he needed to defeat this monster. To pass this stage, he needed to use reverse. The conditions of the test and the reward vary according to the use of reverse. The protagonist lowered the princess from his back and told her to run as far as possible and hide safely. He was surprised in his mind. An enemy? And even reverse? The voice was immediately activated. He noted, well, it's time for the hanged man to show his strength. To activate reverse, you need a sufficient amount of magical power and a certain level, as well as a strong feeling. MC was surprised. What did he say? A strong feeling. The voice answered him. The last attempt failed due to his strong weakness. Let him try again. At that moment, the protagonist's intuition told him to duck. But before the protagonist could do so, the monster struck him. Ruto thought in despair. The monster was too fast. His intuition couldn't keep up. Lulunoa called out his name in alarm. MC gasped from another blow from the monster and fell. The protagonist shouted at the princess to run as quickly as possible. The wolf pinned him down with its huge paw, after which he turned to the princess. The protagonist shouted at him, let him not dare to touch her. At that moment, a voice noted, the reverse is rooted in the original sin of mankind, so what will his choice be? The protagonist irritably asked him to shut his mouth. He doesn't care about any feelings or original sin. The power to protect the princess, the power to defeat the monster, that's all he needs. MC cried out desperately, let him just give it to him already. At this time, the system informed him that the conditions necessary to activate the reverse based on greed were confirmed. His level was sufficient for this, and his magical powers were also sufficient. Thus, all the conditions were met. The reverse was activated. The voice immediately told the protagonist that this ability was an inverted position of the tarot cards. It awakens the hidden power of the arcana. It will collect all the treasures for him, on earth and in heaven. He is a robber who will sweep away all the wealth, take away all the abilities and all the power, and he will grant him the greedy mask of Black Death. Mavalitia. In an instant, a mask with a huge beak appeared on the protagonist's face, and a black glove hand on his right upper limb. A thin but very powerful chain came out of the glove. The protagonist looked at all this in surprise. At that second, the monster rushed at him. Ruto extended his black hand to him, and lightning fast entangled the wolf with chains. Then he struck him with a black hand, and the monster, flying a decent distance from his blow, fell. The voice exclaimed that he was a genius. The system informed the protagonist that the reversal based on greed was confirmed. The trial details are updated. Now his task was to neutralize the burial mound wolf. For this, he was promised a reward in the form of increased vitality and physical abilities, as well as eternal dominance over the burial mound wolf. Lulunoa, not believing her eyes, asked him, he is Ruto, right? But this power and appearance, what happened to him? The protagonist answered her that he himself cannot understand it. First, he should deal with the monster. The wolf was lying on the ground entangled in chains and tried to grin menacingly. The protagonist activated the status and thought this is his true power. He was at level 82, a reversal state. Mavalitia gave him D strength, B stamina, G agility, and A plus magic power. His overall physical ability score was D. Genius gave him the ability to control black chains and deprive enemies of their freedom. Goblin gave him magic that absorbed the enemy's strength, stamina, and agility through touch. The target's unusual status or impact would be absorbed and converted into physical strength. Personal Wolf allowed him to control the force of attraction and repulsion. Mammon gave him the ability to subjugate the enemy. When the reverse was deactivated, the effect of these abilities was partially blocked. He had only 5 minutes left. The protagonist was surprised. Only 5 minutes? There were so many abilities, but no time to test them. He thought the purpose of the test was to neutralize the wolf. Genius would not do. Something else was needed. The princess, who had been watching him in bewilderment all this time, noticed that something was wrong with him. The protagonist felt a magical interference, probably some kind of impact. He looked at the monster more closely, and noticed that up close, it seemed to be in pain. He decided to activate the goblin ability. The system reported that the goblin skill was used on the burial mound wolf. The berserk effect is absorbed and converted into physical strength. The protagonist noted that the monster's gaze began to change. Finally, the wolf was neutralized. The system announced that the test was passed. Life force and physical abilities were increased. The target was subdued. Eternal dominion over this type of monster was gained. MC noted with satisfaction that he had succeeded, but he had a terrible headache. The princess cautiously asked him if he was okay. Ruto answered her that he was fine. He needed to finish while he still had strength. The system asked him if he wanted to try dominance. The protagonist was surprised by this. The voice spoke, "Not bad. It seems that he, the hanged man, has talent too. Domination will simply turn the monster into his faithful companion." Indeed, the wolf approached his master, exhaled heavily, and stood next to him. The protagonist addressed him and said, "Let him forgive him," but he refuses him. The wolf looked at him in bewilderment. The protagonist explained to him, "His hands are tied. Now he cannot afford such a large pet. Let him come to him as soon as he becomes smaller, if he can do it." The voice said, "What a guy. How is it said, everyone is responsible for those who are tamed?" MC thought, "What is he talking about?" Then he took off the mask from his face and exhaled freely. Luluno addressed him by name. She came up to him, hugged him, and thanked him. She added that he is a great guy. He did a good job. He is simply irreplaceable for her. She will definitely make her relatives accept him. After a while, the protagonist opened his eyes and couldn't figure out where he was. Fina noticed he finally woke up. She introduced herself to him and added that she was the head maid in the Demon King's castle. She was very glad to meet them. Fina told him that it had been 2 weeks since he was brought here. She took care of his wounds. The protagonist thought in surprise he was really in the Demon Lord's mansion. The protagonist thanked Fina for her care of him. The girl was embarrassed and said she asks him for forgiveness for making him do this right after waking up, but she asks him to change. With these words, the girl handed him a set of clothes. He looked at her questioningly. Fina told him that Altid was waiting for him. MC, adjusting the sleeves of his jacket, thought, "The Demon King, he is also Lulunoa's father and the worst enemy of this world. He wouldn't kill him the first time they met, would he?" He knocked on the door and heard Altid's voice. The Demon King allowed him to enter. When Ruto entered the throne room, he saw the Demon King lounging on a chair. Altid greeted the MC, told him who he was, and added that the protagonist should take it easy. He wouldn't eat him. He told him to sit opposite him. After telling the protagonist his name again, the ruler suggested that he just call him Alt, and he was very happy to meet them. The protagonist thought in surprise he was not at all like he imagined. The ruler turned to him and noted that his daughter told him everything. He was very grateful to him for saving his Lulunoa. The Demon King added that he himself could not do it because of his position. The protagonist bowed his head in embarrassment, but Altid objected. Let him raise it. Next time he will reward him properly. He gives him his word. But today he would like to talk to him about something. The Demon King continued. First of all, as he heard, in the Lux Empire they told him that he has no powers, right? The protagonist answered him with embarrassment. It seems that no one can see his status. The Overlord activated his status and chuckled in surprise. He really can't see anything. He asked him, what is his ability? The protagonist answered him that it is called the Hanged Man. Altid exclaimed in surprise, "What, an arcana? Has he already managed to show his status to someone?" The protagonist answered him that the first person to see his status was an old man with a staff. The Demon King thoughtfully noted his guess was correct. He explained to the protagonist his status is not visible to anyone because it was deliberately hidden. MC was amazed beyond measure. He asked Altid again in surprise. Hidden? The Lord noted that it was so. It was a high-level concealment skill. Only the old hermit could do it. The protagonist asked him with interest. Could he tell him more about it, about these arcana? Altad told him, arcana, their existence is still a mystery. They only know that there are only 21 of them, and each one is endowed with powerful power. Even in the Demon Kingdom, there are only a few of them. The old man who hid his status is one of the arcana wielders. The hermit's ability is concealment. He is able to hide both himself and others, including statuses and memories. The protagonist asked him why the hermit hid his status. Altad answered him. The only thing that came to his mind was that he did not want the Empire to use the power of his arcana, even though it is disadvantageous for them. However, he is not a man of the Empire. His past is unknown. They told him that he was a hero summoned by the Empire, and the demons that controlled the monsters were the worst enemies of this world, weren't they? He realized from the look of the protagonist that he was right. The king said that this was all the work of humans. In fact, other creatures had very good relations with the demons, and the bloodthirsty monsters were a race that had nothing to do with them. The protagonist thoughtfully noted that it was true that if the demons controlled them, the monsters would not have attacked Lulunoa. Altid said that this was true, but the summoned heroes were made to believe that demons were evil for the Empire. They were locked within the walls of the castle and trained to kill them. Ruto asked him in bewilderment, but why would they do this? The ruler of the demons noted that the Lux Empire was closer to the Demon Kingdom than other countries, so they targeted their land, rich in magical power and resources. The protagonist indignantly said, "What idiocy, and they call them only for these." Altid told him, showing his strength, he will be accepted by the Empire if he returns now. Even though his daughter wanted him to become a butler, he will respect his decision. Ruto said, "Is that so? Then screw this empire. That's his decision." The Demon King laughed and said, "Well said." Lulunoa asked him about it every day, and he even started to worry, but he turned out to be quite an interesting guy. MC thanked him shyly but added, "He has concerns. Will his subjects be against him staying here?" Altid chuckled. "His daughter will take care of it. Sometimes you need to show others your strength." He added, "It seems he spoiled her too much." The protagonist looked at him questioningly. The king noted, he will understand everything himself soon. After a while, the protagonist came to a circular structure. He thought, how many people are there? Is this an arena? The princess ran up to him and asked him with concern, is he okay? Does he feel any pain anywhere? She really wanted to stay and watch over his recovery. The protagonist assured her that he was fine now. The girl said, she was so worried that even being busy, she thought about him. Nell came up to them and noted, as she could see, they were very close. She turned to the princess and asked her, would she introduce them? The third girl, Zara, came up to them. Lulunoa turned to the girls and said that this young man was Ruto. Nell told him that they had heard a lot about him from the princess. She told him her name, adding that she was a sorceress and Lulunoa's cousin, and next to her was the commander of the knights, Zara. The protagonist wanted to tell them that he was glad to meet them, but Zara interrupted him. She approached him and said defiantly, with such a frail body he wants to serve in the castle of the Demon King, and as a butler to the princess? Don't let him make her laugh. The girl belligerently told him that no matter how much the princess wanted it, she would never acknowledge him. Lulunoa sternly interrupted her, telling her, enough. The squad leader wanted to continue objecting, but the princess reminded her, didn't she tell her that the protagonist is her savior? MC thought, no one promised that they would accept him right away. Zero did not calm down, and for a person to work in the castle, the princess begged, enough of this already. That's why she chose this place. She turned to the protagonist and asked him to prove to them all that he is suitable for the role of her butler. Zero called out to him and told him that he will fight with her best knight. She will acknowledge him if he wins fairly. He thought, so that's how it is. He said out loud, as she wishes. The princess turned to the protagonist and told him her order. She thinks she doesn't need to repeat it twice. The protagonist said, he obeys her. His opponent exclaimed mockingly, he will fight with his bare hands? He should not underestimate his strength. Ruto answered him, he has never used a weapon before, it's just a habit. The opponents began to duel. The knight rushed at the protagonist with an attack, but the protagonist simply moved aside a little from his blow, and the guy simply broke the floor with his weapon. Nell said, isn't this too dangerous? Even though it is a training weapon, but still, it is a little scary. Zara answered her, yes, it is just scary. MC could not even respond to the attack. Leaving the princess to him is simply unheard of. Meanwhile, the opponent asked the protagonist, why does he not try to dodge? Maybe he was so scared that he couldn't move? Ruto calmly told him that it wasn't so, he was just testing him. Was there any need to dodge? The opponent exclaimed angrily, let him try it now. He quickly lunged towards the protagonist with double the force but missed again. The knight was puzzled, noticing what was going on. Meanwhile, the protagonist kicked him to the floor, where he remained lying. Everyone in the stands was confused. Zara couldn't calm down. Ruto moved like an amateur, but where did he get such physical strength? She couldn't believe her eyes. The princess warned her by name. Zara stood up, approached the protagonist, and announced that the winner of this duel was the protagonist. MC thought, it's good that he managed to increase his level. Passing the tests in the forest was not in vain. Lulunoa was jubilant, so now no one had any doubts about her butler? Then, they should throw a welcoming party for him. She called him to follow her. He stopped her. The protagonist knelt down on one knee, extended his hand to her, and said he was glad to be with her, and from now on, he would serve her with all his devotion. He thought, since he came to this world, this was his first step forward. Lulunoa was surprised, but then she put her hand in his and said, of course. She hoped that he would live up to all her expectations. The protagonist was happy. Finally, he found his place. He answered the princess as she ordered. Meanwhile, in the Lux Empire, Iris told Seta, Shuji, and Manas that she had just received news of the protagonist's death. She asked them for forgiveness for not being able to protect their dear friend. Shuji addressed her by name and asked her not to cry. They are okay. Yes, they hate to say this, but the protagonist himself is to blame. Why did he leave the palace at all, without any abilities? Manasi supported her ally. She, Iris, had nothing to do with it. The rest of his classmates also condemned him. They said that he probably imagined that he had some hidden abilities. That's why he went alone. The idiot. He should have stayed here and lived quietly. The ungrateful one. Manase asked the sad Mitsuki. Was she okay? Mitsuki wanted to shout to everyone that it was a lie. He was taken away and abandoned alone, but only she knows about it. If only she had talked him out of it then. His classmates were talking among themselves. Maybe it was for the best that the guy died. Of course, everything is understandable, and it's a pity for him. But still, you shouldn't feel sorry for him. Both the son and his parents are not right in the head. It was even good that he died, the son of a murderer. Mitsuki, hearing all this, thought about the main character with regret and suffering. At this time, the hermit was listening to the report from his informer. At the end of it, the old man said, "So the wolf of the burial mound was released. This effect is a complete disappointment." The voice in his head told him that he did an excellent job. This is clearly his doing. The hermit thought, wow, how many decades have passed since his last appeal to him. The voice said that he will not drag it out, but will get straight to the point. He asked the old man, maybe it was enough to mock the hanged man? The hermit thoughtfully drawled that he did not even know. He could not understand why he became attached to this man. The voice indignantly avoided answering. Stop talking nonsense. So yes or no? He does not hear the answer? He's very busy. The old man chuckled. Let him not worry. Unlike him, he no longer needs him. He thought that by driving the protagonist into despair and clouding his happy memories, he could push him onto the path of revenge against the Lux Empire. But that would be boring. The voice answered him. He didn't care what he did with his memories, but if he messed with it again, he wouldn't stand aside. The old man exclaimed. He was too worried. Just don't let him tell him that he was even ready to sacrifice his country for this. Silence sounded in response to the hermit. The old man noted, well, in a year, anything could happen. It looks like something very interesting awaits them. In a year, this continent will enter its golden age. Heroes from other worlds and their descendants, princes and princesses of other races will flock to the capital academy of the empire. A series of unprecedented discoveries will come even for S-ranked travelers. Dragons and other fantastic and divine beasts will come to life. In 1 year, everything will converge to one point, as planned. And the long-unseen 12th arcana, which the protagonist has, the only one among the collected arcana with the ability to develop, will be able to turn the way of this world upside down. This tarot card is a trump card. The times of inaction have come to an end. An era of upheaval is coming. At this time, Shuite came to the Demon Lord's mansion. Sniffing, she noticed she would recognize this smell everywhere. Finally, she found him, her master. Having made her way to his room where the protagonist was sleeping, she curled up and lay down next to him. In the morning, the protagonist, when he opened his eyes, cried out in surprise, seeing a creature in his bed. Shuite woke up, rubbed her eyes and said to her master that she had become smaller and came to him. The protagonist wondered in surprise. Who is this? The Demon King noted. An unusual beastman for this place. Is she still just a puppy? It seems she lost him. Ruto. He asked MC what happened. The protagonist answered him. In fact, he himself had no idea who it was. Shuite, climbing onto his lap, said, the owner saved her from pain and suffering in the forest. The protagonist noted in surprise. In the forest? He was just trying to survive the trials. He didn't have time to save himself. Shuite continued. The master was very strong. He told her to come when she became smaller. She did so. The protagonist exclaimed in amazement. This can't be. She is that huge wolf? The girl was happy and confirmed that it was so. Alted asked in confusion. A wolf? MC explained to him that Shuite is the same cursed wolf that he defeated to protect the princess. But he didn't think that she would take human form. Although, according to his skill, the wolf of the burial mound is the name of her species. Lulunoa turned to Fina in amazement. The maid replied that it was impossible. She wanted to say, but the protagonist's arcana is a unique skill, so there can be no mistake. Ryuto looked at the maid questioningly. The girl, noting this, told them that in the past, there was a species of werewolves who, by drinking the blood of a monster, could change their animal form and possessed impressive strength. However, people saw their strength as a threat, and therefore, they destroyed the entire species, borrowing the elven strength. But one managed to survive. Seeing only destruction in life, he became a ghost that wandered the earth, reaping lives. He ate half of the new sanctuary, a huge forest in which the elves lived. He destroyed a great nation in an instant. People regretted and repented what they had done, and in their fear and despair, they called him the Wolf of the Burial Mound. The protagonist and Shuite listened attentively to her. Fina finished her story, saying that they say that he disappeared immediately after he took revenge. Alted looked at Shuite and asked her how she ended up in that forest. Shuite answered him that she did not know. She only remembered that when she came to her senses, she was already there. She was in so much pain and agony that she destroyed everything that moved. It was dark and scary. She did not understand anything. Shuite turned to the protagonist and asked him for forgiveness for attacking him. The protagonist gently petted her head and asked, "What is her name?" She answered him that her name was Shuite. He said, "That's good. But why did she come to him?" She told him everything that happened to her. He thought that her family and friends were killed. She was all alone. He could not blame her. The beast woman said sadly that she had no place to return to. Wherever she went, people were afraid of her, and she became lonely. She looked at the protagonist devotedly and noted that her master was stronger than her. He's not afraid of her. Let him let her be by his side. They'll play and sleep together and greet each morning together. She doesn't want to be alone anymore. The girl started crying, and the protagonist hugged her. She muttered that she didn't want to be alone anymore. The protagonist looked questioningly at the Demon King. The ruler understood him without words and said, "No problem." The protagonist was surprised, but he hadn't said anything yet. Alted smiled and noticed that he understood everything from his almost tearful expression. He was already like family to him, so he shouldn't be shy. Let him act. MC looked at the girl and said affectionately, that if she was comfortable with him, they could be together from now on. Shuwei pressed herself against him gratefully and said that she agreed to be together with him forever. After a while, Ruto didn't recognize Shuwei. She had a muzzle on her face and a bell on her tail. Fina, noticing his surprised look, told him that she combed her hair and found her a new set of clothes and a bell on her tail in case she gets lost. The protagonist noted that she looked much cleaner now. But is it necessary to put a muzzle on her? It looks strange. The maid explained to him that this was the girl's own request. Maybe they would be less afraid of her this way. Shuwei approached the protagonist and asked her master to use dominance. The system reported that dominance was activated. The saved status of Malavisha would be returned to the specified companion. MC noted that he did not like the term dominance, but oh well, it suits her, doesn't it? The girl exclaimed that it was. She was happy to be connected to her master. The protagonist asked her why she called him master. The beast woman answered him. He chained her up and defeated her. She knew that she would not defeat him. At that moment, something in her stomach sank, so she began to call him master. The protagonist laughed and thought, he felt that something was seriously wrong with all this, but he hoped that it was just his imagination. At that moment, Fina said that it was time for the tea party of the 3 demon princesses. She turned to the protagonist and noted that she thought that this was his chance to show off his skills. It would be nice to show off what he had been practicing. Meanwhile, Lulunoa, the Princess of Destruction, told her allies that the situation was serious, worse than ever. Princess of Golden Influence, Nell asked her what was wrong. Her expression scared her. Princess of the Black Knight, Zara noted that she would also like to know more specifically. As explained to the protagonist, who went to bring the girls tea, the 3 demon princesses are not by origin, but by their ability to support the demon kingdom. He thought, it seems like these 3 were the closest to the demon king. Nell told Lulunoa that if she continued like this, she would scare their butler. Lulunoa turned to Ruto and told him not to think anything. She was not angry or anything like that. The protagonist thought all 3 of them were amazing, but up close, they seemed like ordinary girls. Nell told the daughter of the Monster King that she was joking. Zara indignantly told Nell, stop teasing the princess, because there is a human here. The protagonist thought, it seems like Zara hates all humans. She probably has her reasons for that, but as he thought, this attitude is unbearable. He needs to take it more calmly. Putting the dessert on a plate, he explained to his allies that this cake is called financier. All 3 girls tried it and were completely delighted with the taste. Lulunoa exclaimed, it is so delicious. Nell remarked, it was so soft and yet crispy. Zara remarked, how exquisite, as expected from a chef. Ruto told them he actually made this dessert. He heard that the princess loved sweets. The demon king's daughter exclaimed that she adored it. She corrected herself. She meant cake. Nell laughed and remarked, this was simply incredible, a butler and such a masterpiece. She asked him if she could have another piece. Zara said in confusion, what did he say? The girl looked at him carefully, and then she told him not to think that he had won. He agreed with her. Of course he didn't think so. In his mind, he was jubilant. It was a victory. Zara turned to the princess. She asked her, by the way, what serious situation was she talking about? Lulunoa remembered. That's right. Their castle is running out of sungrass. The protagonist noticed that they make sugar from this grass. He guesses that a lot of it is used to make sweets, right? The princess exclaimed that he was right. They usually buy it from a merchant near their mansion. But it seems that there has been a terrible crop failure this season. As the name suggests, sunlight plays a key role in the growth of the sungrass. But the sun no longer rises in the village, at least that's what she heard. She added that this was terrible. She might not be able to enjoy sweets anymore. Nell noticed the sun no longer rises then? How interesting. Zara spoke up. She had never heard of such a thing happening before. Lulunoa declared. And so, she has a plan. She addressed both the protagonist and Zara by name, and announced that they would investigate this matter together. The protagonist and the Knight Commander stared at each other in shock, and then exclaimed in unison, what did she say? Nell noted that this was a good idea. Well done, princess. She thought of everything. Lulunoa answered her, that's right. Let her praise her. She told MC and Zara that they would just have to get along with each other. Zara was indignant, but he was a human. Ryuto also wanted to object to her decision. The princess irritably noted they would do it together, period. They had no choice but to bow their heads and answer the princess that they listened to her and obeyed her. Sitting in the carriage, MC thought that this was terribly awkward. Should he talk about something? But she obviously hated him. He looked out the window and, seeing a huge tower, was surprised to notice that the top was not visible. Zara asked in bewilderment, did he not even know about the Tower of Babel? The protagonist nervously agreed. She told him that this was the Tower of the Sage, also known as the Tower of the Unification of Languages, the Tower of Babel, a giant structure that has pierced the heavens since ancient times and stands in the center of the world. It has the power to unite all the languages in this world. The protagonist wondered in surprise that now he understands why he can communicate and read normally in this world, although he was summoned from another. But how is Japanese known here? He thanked her with a smile and noted that this is the first time he heard about it. The girl answered discontentedly, let him give it up. She cannot stand flattery and fawning on others. Her opinion about him being some kind of shady one will not change. MC nervously wondered, did she have to be so hostile? He exclaimed with displeasure that he would not try to please anymore. She agreed and added that it was much better this way. Their destination was a human village. He would go and gather information from the villagers himself, and then they would decide what to do. Did he have any objections? The protagonist agreed and thought that since she hated humans, it would be better for him as a human to take it upon himself. By the way, what race was she? She did not have the characteristic features of demons, so she must be a very rare race. He asked what race she was. Zara answered horrifyingly that it was none of his business. The protagonist fearfully wondered what was wrong with her. He just asked. No, maybe she did not like to talk about it. At this time, Nell, sitting at the table with Lulunoa, said that she wondered if the two had become friends. She replied that it wasn't right away. It would be enough for her if they got along at least a little. It couldn't be helped. Zara would be hard to trust after what people had done to her. Lulunoa said that so be it. She was sure they would eventually find common ground. They were similar, didn't she think so? Nell agreed and noted that the butler reminded her very much of Zara when they first met. But didn't that worry her at all? Zara could steal him away from her, couldn't she? Lulunoa excitedly exclaimed that everything would be fine. Ruto was very attached to her, right? Nell agreed with a smile and replied that she wouldn't stand aside either if that happened. She nervously asked, didn't she mean the curse? The girl answered with a smile that if that was what she wanted, she could rely on her. After a while, Zara noticed that they had almost reached the village. She hadn't noticed anything strange yet. The protagonist added that the sun was also in place. He wondered if it was all just a figment of his imagination. But the growth of the sun grass was indeed affected by something. He had better remain vigilant until they entered the village. Suddenly, the girl stopped abruptly and stared at the sky. MC looked up in confusion and, seeing the full moon, asked in confusion what was going on. It happened as soon as they approached the village. At that moment, the start of the test was announced. He thought that it had been a long time since it had appeared. The protagonist asked if she was okay. Zara agreed and suggested that it was probably some kind of barrier. He asked if a simple barrier could do such a thing. She replied that she had never heard of such a thing either. Suddenly a huge ogre appeared in front of them. The girl drew her sword in an instant and cut off its head. After that, she noted with a serious face that monsters are active even at night. They need to always be on guard. The protagonist, in wild shock, thought that she was strong. Zara pointed out that he should go first and keep going straight. He asked, what about her? She replied that she would catch up with him later. After some time, the MC arrived at the village and began asking the locals. A man greeted him with a smile and thanked him for taking up the investigation. Another woman said that things were really bad. Without the sun, the washed clothes would not dry. Another guy said that he should ask the old woman at the tavern about it. After some time, the protagonist, looking at the map, thought that it seemed like the rumors about the sun not rising here were true. Zara approached him and asked how things were going. He replied that it seemed like there was an old woman who knew everything about it. The girl pointed out that he should go to her then. After some time, the protagonist arrived at the right tavern and began to chat. The old lady said that she had seen it with her own eyes. When the night fell on the village, she saw a dragon roaring at the moon on the top of the mountain. He asked her in confusion if she was sure. She agreed and added that, although she was the only one who saw it, no one believed her, so even if she went to the Adventurers Guild, no one would listen. MC thanked her for the information and thought that it seemed like these mystical creatures even existed in this world. He didn't think the old lady was lying. He approached Zara and asked if she heard what she said. The girl thought for a moment and, after coming to her senses, asked if she was talking about the dragon, right? The protagonist asked if she was tired. Maybe they should call it a day and continue tomorrow? She agreed, and they went to their rooms. He thought that she wasn't acting like an iron lady right now. Did something happen to her? Well, there was no point in thinking about it. When they reached the door, the protagonist said goodbye to her, but Zara just ignored him silently with a stern look. He sat down on the bed and thought with displeasure that he thought that they would get even a little closer here. He had no idea how to find a common language with the girl. After all, even in his homeworld, he had no friends. He shouldn't remember this horror before going to bed. Suddenly, MC fell asleep abruptly and dreamed of the word killer. He woke up abruptly and nervously asked how long he slept. He needed to check on Zara. After some time, the innkeeper said with a smile that his companion had just left. She walked unsteadily towards the mountains. He tried to stop her, but nothing worked. The protagonist exclaimed in surprise. Seriously? He went outside and thought, did she really decide to investigate everything alone? If something happens to her, Lulunoa will be sad. He thinks he feels something. The protagonist began to look around in fear and thought that it was just the wind. Suddenly, he noticed the severed head of an ogre and, falling to the ground, fearfully noted that these were the remains of the monster they had defeated. Strange, a little time had passed, but why was it so dry? As if someone had sucked out his blood. MC abruptly ran to the side and thought that he was asking for her to be okay. He heard the splash of water and, running there, found Zara standing naked in the river. She turned around abruptly and became very nervous. The protagonist embarrassedly shouted to her to forgive him. He was worried because she was not there when he woke up. He would return to the village right now. Suddenly, the girl instantly rushed at him and noted that he had seen her scars and therefore he would die here. The protagonist fearfully thought that she had golden eyes that glowed in the dark and unnaturally long fangs. This is a creature that troubled the world in ancient times, awakened by the blood of the true ones, a mutated representative of the human race, a vampire. Its true essence is an unsociable race that became an enemy of the entire world. Zara said that the moon, darkness, and the smell of blood always drove her crazy. These memories that will never leave her urge her to harbor anger towards them. She hates this damned instinct, as well as the people who took everything from her, but most of all, she hates. At this time, the protagonist was frightened to think that vampires are creatures that suddenly mutated from humans. They have sharp fangs, golden eyes, and demonic wings. In prehistoric times, demons known as the true ancestors overcame their weakness to sunlight and began to attack all living beings in whose veins blood flowed. They are said to have disappeared, leaving behind only filth, their own blood in the veins of the human race. Zara, holding the blade to his throat, said that he had found out her true nature, which meant that he had to die. She couldn't stay in the demon kingdom if her nature was revealed. The protagonist excitedly exclaimed that he wasn't going to tell anyone. She replied that she would never believe him, because they, humans, had taken everything from her. She didn't want anything except for a modest but peaceful life with her parents. The girl told him how, as a child, on her own birthday, she had gone out for a walk. Zara greeted a local woman and, showing her a homemade wreath, happily said that her mom and dad had made it. The woman replied with a smile that it was amazing. She was already 5 years old, right? She was sure that she would grow up to be as beautiful as her mother. Suddenly, wings appeared behind her. The woman screamed that there was a mudblood here. From that very day, everything changed. After that incident, the girl's mother saw her wings and was very surprised. Zara herself noticed that the aunt next door said that she was a monster. The woman hugged her and answered with a smile that she was her. No matter what she was, she would always be her favorite daughter. Zara was upset that the aunt looked scared. Was she really a bad person? Her father happily answered that of course not. She was the kindest child in the world. The mother agreed and added that she had done nothing wrong. He asked with a smile, "How about having a picnic somewhere far away tomorrow? Mom would cook them some delicious food." Suddenly, the guild members knocked on the door and shouted for them to give up their daughter. Their daughter was a vampire. She had awakened the blood of a traitor who had rebelled against the world. Do they even understand what would happen if they hid her? Mom hid Zara with a smile and said, "Let her sit here, just in case." Dad said with a smile, "Let her not be afraid. Everything will be fine. They just need to talk to them. She is still the same as yesterday. Their kind daughter. They love her." The woman hugged her, and they went to the door. After some time, the whole house was covered in flames, and Zara's parents burned. The hunters came inside, found her, and grabbing her, shouted that it was a monster. They need to quickly kill this monster. She cried out in fear. Let her go. The guy who held her hand noted that she was an ugly monster. Wouldn't it be better for them to cut off her wings first? At the present time, Zara dropped the sword in horror and asked what mom and dad did to them, all because the blood of the true ancestor awakened in her. Is there really no place for her in this world? MC nervously remembered his childhood, how they said about him that his parents were murderers. And the worst part is that they are in the same class. Who knows what he might do? It feels like he will kill them the moment their eyes meet. Does he even deserve to live? He is currently thinking that it is always like this. Wherever he goes, he is judged only by his parents. Zara said that they, humans, are always like this. Why do they care so much about ancestors or bloodlines? She just wants to be seen for who she is. The protagonist also thought about this and thought that they are very similar. But no, that is exactly why he has to say. He threw clothes on her with a serious face and grabbed her, shouting at her to pull herself together. Zara asked in confusion, "What does idiot mean?" The protagonist answered with a serious face that it means exactly that. She never stops talking about humans, and she also wants him to see her for who she is. She should not make him laugh. From the very beginning, he only saw Zara in her. So what if she was a vampire? How did that make her any different? The girl grabbed him nervously and asked, "What does he even know?" He was just another alien. She couldn't survive without killing living beings. He couldn't even imagine how afraid people were of vampires who had sucked the blood of half the continent. MC answered with a serious face that killing their own kind for personal reasons. In this regard, people were much crazier. His parents had killed their relatives simply for money. He didn't even really know what happened back then, but people still always looked at him as the son of murderers. He hadn't even done anything, but people were afraid that he might kill them. The only ones who dared to approach him were hooligans who lived off the suffering of others. They even asked him, what was it like to be a murderer? But despite everything, he had nothing to do with it. He is him, that's all. No matter if she's a vampire or something else, she's still herself. In the forest where he met Lulu Noah, after seeing her smoke signal, she called her friend with a truly happy smile. The ones who lent him the book that included vampires were Altid and Fina. And Nell also sometimes casts worried glances at her. He's sure that everyone in the Demon King's castle treasures her. Zara burst into tears and replied that she's always thought about that. If she can cause trouble for the people who accepted her, does she even deserve to live? The protagonist replied that everyone in the castle would be sad if she died, and he doesn't want that to happen either. She wondered if he was really not afraid of her, even though she tried to kill him. MC replied that he wasn't afraid at all. Would someone kill someone while shaking all over? He knew that she didn't intend to do that. Zara asked, and he doesn't hate her? He answered that it's impossible, because she happily ate the sweets he made, like a normal sweet girl. She became very embarrassed and hugging him, thought that she hated people and this damned instinct. But most of all, she hated herself for continuing to cling to life, no matter what. After some time, they returned to the inn. The protagonist heated up the milk with the magic stone of fire, and thought that since Lulunoa shared her magical power with him back in the forest, it seems that now he has gained some of his own. He wonders what those symbols are at the bottom. Should he ask that mysterious voice? By the way, he found and warmed up some milk here, but will she drink it? Perhaps she has already fallen asleep? More precisely, is it appropriate for a man to suddenly enter a girl's room? Suddenly, Zara herself came into his room, holding a pillow in her hands, and then said that she thought he was still awake. MC asked if something was wrong. The girl answered sheepishly that no. He noted that he had heated up some milk. Would she like to drink it? She agreed and, thanking him, sat down next to him. The protagonist nervously wondered if she was too close. Zara, seeing him, asked if something was wrong. He excitedly answered that nothing was wrong. As soon as they finished drinking the milk and rested, they would need to continue the investigation. The girl agreed and apologized in advance. The protagonist answered that she should not take it to heart. Thanks to this, she finally opened up to him a little. She sheepishly asked how long he would do this. She said that she did not need these formalities, so he should stop already. MC looked at her in bewilderment and called her by name. Zara exclaimed in wild shock, "What did he say?" He replied that he was just trying to address her as she asked. She became very embarrassed and gave his name in short. The protagonist said that it was time for them to find out what kind of dragon it was. After some time, they came to a rocky area. He noticed that the air was heavy here. Could she feel it? Zara agreed and added that it seemed that the words about the dragon were not a fiction. The protagonist thought that this was the heavenly dragon, Giverdi, a worm. They say that it has existed since the creation of the world. It is a creature from a higher dimension, possessing enormous knowledge. Dragons are a rare species, and even among them there are 3 pillars that are revered as gods, namely, the heavenly dragon, the earthly dragon, and the supreme dragon. According to Zara, the only one who can plunge everything into eternal night is the heavenly dragon. But what was he doing in such a place? Suddenly, he heard a voice that said that their hanged man was already hanging out with another woman. What a playboy he is, MC thought with displeasure. Let him shut up. The voice continued that they hadn't talked for so long, and he was so cold. Although he helped him last time, he replied that he didn't remember him helping him. The voice noted that it didn't matter. So what was he doing now? The protagonist replied that it was a long story, but perhaps he knew something. After some time, having listened to the story, the voice replied that, of course, it was possible that this was Urdia's doing. After all, the heavens were some kind of kindergarten. This was the nickname of the heavenly dragon. After all, Giverdi, a worm, too long, so he shortened it to Urdia. And just in case, let him not think of trying to subdue him. He was beyond his strength. The protagonist replied that he knew this. He seemed to understand their language, so he just wanted to talk. The voice said that this was a wise decision, but this child is not one to cause trouble. He is interested in what happened. Suddenly, a loud sound was heard. Zara excitedly told him to be on guard, because he is already close. After that, they came to a small clearing where the dragon was sleeping. Sensing them, the monster woke up and suddenly began to attack. MC shouted in fear that they did not come to fight but to talk. The dragon ordered him to shut up. He would not fall for their trickery. System windows appeared, notifying that the dragon was hostile to him. The details of the test are displayed. Let him calm the sky dragon. The reward depends on the form of reverse. The voice said that he was furious. This is bad. The protagonist nervously thought that this is not just bad, but dangerous. What should he do? Maybe he should use reverse? But he has a time limit and too many uncertainties. Suddenly, Zara stood up with a serious face and stood in front. The dragon mockingly noted that they were like small mushrooms to him. What could they do to him? The girl asked if he could buy her 10 minutes. The protagonist thought with a serious face that he would die if he screwed up, but he would also die if he did nothing. In that case, he would trust his own strength. He stood up and asked with a serious face, 10 minutes would be enough, right? The voice said that greed was good for confronting the weak, but it was useless here. So what would he choose with his intuition? MC thought that he needed to remember what he felt in that dark and deep forest. That's right, endless hunger. He used the reverse skill, and the system windows appeared, saying that the conditions necessary to activate the gluttony-based reverse were confirmed. Level: sufficient, magic power, sufficient, conditions met. The protagonist said that the prey flying in the sky and running on the ground would fall under the onslaught of the storm and rain and be swallowed by it. He is a forager that consumes victims, sucks out talents, and devours karma. He made the wings of a voracious locust, Zabulgra, and said that he trusted her with his life. Zara replied with a smile that she did too. Let him not dare to die in her arms. The protagonist opened the status window and thought that he had SS agility, flight magic, and provocation. There is no choice, he will have to take a risk, although the latter sounds very dangerous. He used the skill, Wings of Gluttony, Yawa, and thought that this means the heavenly dragon will attack him. System windows appeared, which said that the reverse based on gluttony was activated. The details of the trial are displayed. Let him survive the confrontation with the heavenly dragon. The reward is life force and maximum mana. The monster himself flew up into the air and asked, he's an arcana, right? This is a smart guy, but what can some half-baked hanged man do against him? The protagonist thought nervously. Half-baked? Suddenly, the dragon began to attack him. He lost his balance and, falling to the ground, thought that because of the gust of wind, his balance was upset. The dragon aimed at him to finish him off, when suddenly MC sharply took off and dodged. He nervously said that he loomed annoyingly, like a pathetic lord of the flies. He would show him what happens to fools who incur the dragon's wrath. The protagonist thought that he was attacking again. He tries to confuse him with words, but there are moments when the attacks suddenly stop. What is this dragon hiding? He will not understand it in any way, but here it is, his gap. Well, they will play not for life, but to the death. The monster began to attack him again, but he began to deftly dodge. The voice said, let him give it his all, otherwise he will die a slow and painful death. The dragon asked displeasedly, how could a useless fly that could only dodge dare to challenge him? MC answered with a smile that he actually did not try to challenge him. He wondered how much time had passed already. The voice answered that it was about more than 5 minutes. At this moment, Zara was accumulating strength. The dragon sensed this and asked in surprise, this colossal, bloodthirsty magic power is the legacy of the king of the night and vampires, right? How troublesome they are. It seems he should not hold back. The protagonist shouted with a serious face that he will not let him touch her. The dragon broke his wings in an instant and flew to finish him off. The voice said that this is the end. If Erdia takes this seriously, the two of them will become chops in 2 counts. MC, who hit the rock, thought nervously, if you think about it, why did he get off so easily? That's right. The sky dragon retreated every time he found himself with his back to the mountain. And even now, it is capable of demolishing an entire mountain, but it decided to descend to the ground and approach him because it does not want to destroy the mountain? No, it feels like it is protecting something. At this moment, the dragon tried to finish him off. The protagonist thought nervously that since only this attack would work, he would use it. He used the skills Cerberus and fired a powerful volley of magic in response. A powerful flash appeared at the scene. The dragon nervously noted that this guy absorbed all of his magic power. That's it, let him die. MC thought with a smile that he cannot move even though death is looming over him. However, he does not feel fear because she believes in her. At this moment, Zara finished concentrating and apologized for the wait. He smiled and noted that she had come just in time. He would leave the rest to her. The girl, grabbing her sword, replied that he should rely on her. She swears by her blood. This night belongs to her. Instantly after these words, everything around was covered in darkness and the moon appeared. The dragon exclaimed in wild shock that he did not believe his eyes. Could she really be a direct descendant? Zara angrily asked how he dared to beat up her friend. The protagonist, watching this, thought that this was the vampire power that she hated. The girl said that he had learned everything about her and accepted her as such. And if so, this is not the power of a vampire, but her own. She is the one who overcame the sun, the day vampire. The blood of the true ancestor who committed atrocities thousands of years ago flows in her. Even dragons could not stop her. This blood is the strongest in the world. The dragon furiously began to attack her and shouted that she was just a relic of the past. Zara stood up straight with a calm face and thought that she had always ignored this power and sealed the magic power she had obtained by sucking blood into this magic sword. However, now she would release every single drop. This sword was created to protect those dear to her, and its name was the Vampire Lord. She rushed to attack with lightning speed, and with one sharp movement of her hand, she used draining magic, causing the dragon to fall to the ground. After that, a system window appeared, which said that he survived the battle with the heavenly dragon. His reward was life force and maximum mana. Zara asked, would they kill him? The protagonist stood up and replied that no, he had only absorbed his magic power. He would be immobilized for a while. He wanted to talk about something. The dragon furiously shouted at him to shut up. They have nothing to talk about. They are just damned greedy travelers. He hasn't lost yet. Zara, watching this, remarked that he was strange. He could have just removed the night barrier. MC thought that was true. That way he would have saved more magic power. As he thought, something was wrong. He approached the monster and said that they needed to talk. The dragon exclaimed in displeasure, let him not come closer. The protagonist excitedly replied that he would not do anything. He came even closer, when suddenly a small rabbit crashed into his leg, which then jumped on the monster. The dragon fearfully said, "Let him run quickly. Enough about him already. If they try to harm him, he will not leave it like that." Zara sighed and remarked that there seemed to be a reason for that. The protagonist said with a smile, and he thought that was not so. The heavenly dragon was protecting him. He approached the rabbit and began to pet it. The dragon, seeing this, was completely perplexed. MC smiled and noted that there must have been a misunderstanding. Maybe they could talk now? After a while, the dragon excitedly exclaimed that he was very sorry. He let his anger get the better of him, leaving the beast aside. What a fool he was. The protagonist replied that he was not. They also apologized for not understanding his circumstances. He thought that this was the phantom beast, Al-Mirage. Its meat contains enormous magical power. Those who consume it will gain the power to overcome their developmental limits, which is why it becomes the target of different races. Al-Mirage heals wounds with the help of moonlight, which is why the dragon erected a night barrier and attacked them, considering the rabbit a threat. That's what this eternal night was for. All for the sake of moonlight. MC wondered if those travelers were still chasing him. The dragon agreed and added that it seemed like they had marked the phantom beast with something. Wherever he is, they always manage to find him. They must be high-ranking adventurers. The protagonist wondered if he could find out more about it when he returned to the castle. He called him by his full name with a thoughtful expression. The dragon replied with a smile that it was too long, and that he should just call him Erdia. That was his usual name among the three dragons. Zara called out to him and asked if that was a well-known name. The dragon replied that no, it was an old nickname. Now, only 2 of the 3 dragon pillars in Al-Mirage call him that. The MC asked if there was anyone among the 3 dragon pillars that particularly irritated him. Erdia agreed and replied that it was the Supreme Dragon. He wondered if that mysterious voice belonged to the Supreme Dragon. The monster explained that the Supreme Dragon can interfere with the affairs of the Arcana, but is extremely cold to those who do not arouse his interest. If he's annoying, it means he's interesting. Well, didn't he want to talk about something? The protagonist asked if he didn't mind. Could he go with them to the Demon King's castle? After a while, they flew to the castle. MC, sitting on the dragon, remarked that he must be very tired from the fight. Thanks to him for giving them a ride despite this. He thought that it was amazing how comfortable it was to ride, even at this altitude and speed. It must be partly due to the magic. Erdia replied that they shouldn't worry. It was his thanks for helping the Phantom Beast. He was simply incredible. Despite being incomplete, he was still able to use skills at this level. The protagonist replied that he still didn't know much about the Arcana. Could he please tell him more about it? The dragon replied that it was no problem. It wasn't for nothing that he had lived so long. There is the star, the moon, the sun, judgment, death, temperance, the devil, the tower, the hermit, wheel of fortune, strength, the hanged man, the hierophant, the lovers, the chariot, justice, the fool, the magician, the high priestess, the empress, the emperor. The protagonist said that any of the 21 arcana possesses great power. At least that's what he understood from asking people and looking through books. Erdia replied that then, he thought he should tell him about the gift of God and inheritance. There are 2 schemes for the appearance of arcana. Those that start at the bottom relate to inheritance. Within 20 years after the death of the owner of the arcana, as soon as certain conditions are met, an heir will appear. There are also arcana whose conditions are still unclear. The gift of God is completely random. To whom, when, and where the arcana will be passed on is unknown. MC noted that this means that his hanged man is a gift of God. Erdia agreed and added that if the conditions for inheritance are not met, as an exception, the transmission path changes to gift of God. The jester, the hermit, and the hanged man originally followed the path of inheritance. The protagonist asked what he meant when he said that his arcana was incomplete. The dragon replied that he had met the previous hanged man, and his strength was completely outrageous. He wondered if that meant he could become even stronger. In this world full of unknowns, he wanted to be strong enough to protect Lulunoa and the people in the Demon King's castle. Suddenly, Zara grabbed him from behind. The protagonist asked what was wrong. Was she unwell? She sheepishly apologized and explained that it was a vampire impulse. It seemed she had used up too much strength. The MC bared his sleeve and replied that he understood. Did she want to drink blood? He was not afraid of it. Zara exclaimed in surprise. Is everything really okay? Let him forgive her. She will be careful. She only needs 1 bite. He nervously replied that he no longer wanted to trust her. The girl bit him and began to drink his blood. The protagonist was surprised to think that she had already drunk a lot. A system window appeared, which said that the necessary conditions were met. The inheritance of the moon arcana occurs. A mandatory condition is the absorption of blood by the owner of the vampire arcana. The target of the inheritance of the moon arcana is Zara. The protagonist thought, so this is how the inheritance occurs. After some time, he woke up on the bed. Seeing an unknown girl, MC excitedly exclaimed, "Who is she, and where are they anyway?" Shuwait replied that he returned to the castle. She took off her mask and greeted him with a smile. At that moment, Fina approached them and said that she heard everything from Zara. They did a good job on the investigation. She sewed clothes for Shuwait. It was one of her rare requests. So, The girl herself happily agreed and noted that it was just like the owner. Thanks to this, she can now even hide her appearance with clothes and go with the owner to investigate. The protagonist thought that everything was clear to him. Even though it had only been a week, she was lonely without him. He happily patted her head and said that it suited her very well. It was just a pity that her face was covered, because it was very cute. But the mask was also very cool. Shuwei shyly took off the mask at first and then put it back on. Fina said that Lulunoa was waiting for the two of them. Suddenly, she herself ran into the room and exclaimed with a smile that she was very happy. He had finally come to his senses. She was very worried and scolded Zara properly for this. The protagonist answered with a smile that he was okay now, so everything was fine. She approached him and excitedly asked if it was true. He looked at her with a smile and agreed. Fina, watching this, called out to Shuwei and noted that they probably needed to talk. She offers her some tea. After that, they both left the room. Lulunoa shyly spread her arms out to the sides and froze, and then noted that they hadn't seen each other for a week. He must have missed her, right? The MC, completely confused, agreed. She replied that she would let him hug her then. Come on, let him go to her. He excitedly said that this was disrespectful to her. The girl exclaimed in displeasure that she was ordering him. The protagonist approached her and hugged her. Lulunoa asked with a smile if he liked her. He answered that, of course he did. The girl moved away from him and noted that that was enough for now. This was his entire reward. She would go first, and he should come out quickly. The protagonist sat down and, covering his head with his hands, asked displeasedly, "Is this really possible?" His heart couldn't take it. Sometime later, in the tea room of the Demon King's castle, Lulunoa happily announced that the 32nd royal meeting was beginning. Fina admiringly noted that she was doing a great job. Zara, sitting at the table, added with a smile that it was a worthy announcement, as expected of her. Erdia, sitting at the table in human form, said that being so lively was very good. MC, looking at her, wondered if she was a dragon. The girl agreed and explained that her previous form would have stood out a lot. What would he say about this? Wasn't her form cute? He agreed in confusion. She became very shy and replied that she understood. Lulunoa exclaimed with displeasure that there should be no idle chatter here. First, they would start with the incident in the village where the sun does not rise. This time, the investigation was very important. When the heavenly dragon removed the barrier, the village returned to its usual life. Thanks to this, the problem with the sungrass was also solved. However, the two of them seemed to have become much closer than they expected. She was waiting for a detailed explanation. This time, the topic of the meeting is how to make the travelers who marked the phantom beast surrender. The markings on it can be used to identify its location. Since it would take a lot of materials to dispel such advanced magic, it is more practical to just make the caster remove the spell, so let them decide. Zara said with a calm face that they could just kill them all. Lulunoa exclaimed that she wanted a bloodless solution. Shuwei pointed out that if she ate them, there would be no blood left. Nell asked with a smile, "How about the incapacitation curse? Even though it only affects men, the effect is excellent." Lulunoa asked in confusion, what did she plan to do with the incapacitated? The girl tried to answer with a smile, but she interrupted her and said that she would not let her finish her sentence. "My, they are very scary. Let them listen. She has a plan. In short, they just need to scare them. And not just a little, but a lot. She will make Ruto famous beyond the Demon Kingdom and pass him off as a demon." Sometime later, the A-rank adventurer's shining sword killed a snake in the forest. Lloyd wondered what the mark on the Almirage showed. Kai replied that it didn't look like he had gone that far from the Demon King's castle. Kyo remarked that it was just that so many nights had passed that his wounds had probably healed. Ruri said with displeasure that she was fed up with everything, and all because they didn't kill him right away. She replied that even if she didn't say so, there was no question of refusing this quest. The guildmaster was also worried about this, because the request was left by the Archbishop of Babylon of the Lax Empire himself. Shouldn't they really go that far for the sake of heroes from another world? Ruri happily exclaimed that Kyo was right. They had to go out of their way just to enter the territory of the Demon Kingdom, but you have to look on the bright side. If they can kill the demons that took the rabbit with them, their reward will surely increase, right? Kai noted. He said that this time they were only going out for reconnaissance. The hero who killed the wolf of the burial mound, isn't he somewhere around here too? Ryu asked. Didn't they subjugate A-rankers? Even if he was S-rank, it would be easier to defeat him. With her library, the enemy's status would be revealed to her in an instant, and once they figured out his weaknesses, they would have nothing to fear. If everything went smoothly, of course. Ruri asked them to remain vigilant since they were entering the next zone. Lloyd smiled and said, for this, the demon's territory was finally waiting for them. They entered, when suddenly they looked around in bewilderment, noticing complete darkness. He asked in surprise, is it night? Kai asked everyone to be on guard, since something was approaching them. He subjugates countless magical beasts, and because of his creepy outfit, he resembles a demon, with black goat horns, a raven mask, a snake necklace, insect wings, the back of an ominous bull, a destructive dragon claw, and a black lion sword. Rebelling against God, defiling the earth, despised by the heavens, merciful to people. Luluna Lulunoa opened the book and said that this was a poem about a hero, and this performance would be the second coming of the demon. He must scare them properly. Lloyd held out his sword in front of him and ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Riru hesitantly wanted to say something, but Kai asked what was the matter. She said that nothing was displayed there and the skill did not work. What should I do? MC introduced himself as Kagan. He was glad to meet the travelers, and he was instructed to welcome the dear guests. He asked them not to worry. He did not intend to cause them trouble today. His task was to entertain them and come to an agreement. Lloyd asked, "Come to an agreement?" Hagen agreed. He would get straight to the point. Could they remove the mark from Al Mirage? Lloyd thought that this guy knew their goal. Riru asked what they would get if they accepted his offer. Kagan said that they would get a guarantee of their safety. Wouldn't that be an acceptable exchange? She smirked. What a pity that they had a mission, so the negotiations failed. The guys called out to her, and she said that he was just lying. If he was really that strong, why would he negotiate with them? Suddenly, chains bound their bodies, and Hagen asked, "Would they negotiate now?" Ruri exclaimed in displeasure. No way. He noted that he didn't want to go that far. Suddenly, Ruri heard the roar of a monster that appeared in front of her. She asked madly, "A burial mound wolf?" Hagen patted the wolf and said he would give them a demand to remove the mark. Ruri said that she would remove the mark, and then Hagen noted that the mistress's order was carried out. Sometime later at the carriage, the protagonist worriedly asked, "Everything will be okay, right?" She said that she only cast a weak sleeping curse, so they will come to their senses soon. She offered to take them away while they still can. Zara called out to the protagonist and awkwardly said that it was a good job. He was cool, I guess. Lulunoa discontentedly asked her to stop and not to say it before her. Nell laughed and said that it was unfair. Zara awkwardly apologized. She thought that she could give only one compliment. Shuait tugged the protagonist by the clothes and asked if she was useful to them. He covered her with a cloak and said that she was a good girl and apologized for forcing her to play the role of a terrible beast. Shuait noted that she was glad that she could help the master. Urdia called out to the protagonist and happily said that the mark was gone. QQ was also grateful. Ruto doubtfully said that he was glad, and it was worth it. Lunoa said that it was to be expected from her butler. He was simply great. Probably everyone has read the poem about the demon Vern at least once. She thinks he is perfect for intimidation, and it is also her Bible. Urdia agreed. What memories? The protagonist thought, a raven mask and insect wings. I wonder if it is a coincidence that the demon Vern's appearance is similar to his? Nell suggested that they finally move them, and then they went home. Shuait said that she was hungry. She is sure that the chef tried to cook them something delicious today too. Urdia said that she and QQ will go ahead and ask Fina to set the table. Lulunoa walked behind Ruto and tugged at his clothes. He asked Zare and the others to go ahead. He still had some business to attend to. They were seeing the carriage off and asked what happened. Lulunoa noted hesitantly. She just wanted to tell him again that she was very grateful for Zara. The protagonist agreed. The two of them really were similar. She said that if he could see, she was worried that she couldn't save him or Zur, since she was so helpless. MC yelled that that wasn't true at all, and that she had saved him and Zur. She treasured her too. Lulunoa thanked him for saying that, because she and Zur and the others are like family in the Demon King's castle. Over time, they had developed a certain level of trust, and she wasn't afraid of Zur or seeing her as a burden or anything. But even when she tells her that, she takes it as kindness rather than the truth. Ryuto remarked, so she said that she saved them. Lulunoa replied that everything was top-notch and he was great. Then she, who saved such a great protagonist, is also great. He grinned and agreed. She was incredible. She asked if he wanted to know her secret about the arcana and the discord between her and Nell. Meanwhile, in the great elven forest, Ermal asked if he thought the elven leader would agree to talk to them. Alted replied that it would be very problematic if they did not agree. Babylon, an abandoned city, an underground city, a sea temple, a huge hole in the sky. No matter what, he needed information. Ermal noted, 5 great dungeons unexplored by mankind. Maybe in these depths there is a mysterious treasure that can remove the curse. Alted said that if it does not remove it, nothing can, and they will not be able to hide it forever. The teleportation device and the magic ceiling curse that was cast on Lulunoa last month, the berserker curse on the wolf of the burial mound. The range of beings that can use high-level curses is limited, and the forbidden art that almost killed her when she was little and sealed the arcana if the incapacitation curse, as it is not lifted. He knows what he means, right? Using ultra-black magic against the demon princess is tantamount to treason, and when the time comes, he will kill Nell. 10 years ago, Lulunoa was a genius, and at the age of 5, she was able to create an 8-layer magic circle by putting 8 simple ones together. It was unprecedented. The 8-year-old Lulunoa thought that 2 layers was the limit. She asked, amazing, right? Nell said in admiration that it was incredible, but she was still proud of Lulunoa, her sweet, talented sister, hoping that one day she too would be able to use magic like her and they would protect their country together. She clung to this dream. Nell tried to use magic, but it didn't work. She thought sadly why, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make a 3-layer. Her father asked Nell to stop training magic for today. Aren't she tired? They would have dinner at the Demon King's castle tonight. Nell was upset and thought that although her father and others who knew about her dream did not say anything, over time she was forced to admit that she did not have magical talent. Lulunoa called out to Nell and said that she had hunted a monster today. Zara and Nell were happy, and the three of them became friends. The vampire girl who was taken in by the Knight Commander. At first she was very reserved, but they quickly became friends. The dream of 2 people turned into the dream of 3. The 3 of them wanted to protect this country, so she worked even harder on her magic. Nell thought, even if she doesn't have talent, as long as she keeps working hard. Her father tried to stop her, but she said that she can do even more. Suddenly he apologized and she asked why. What was he apologizing for? For not being able to give her magical talent. Even if he apologizes, does anyone even have hope for her? Lulunoa came up to her and said that she and Zara went to the dungeon today. She was amazing and killed all the monsters with her sword. Zara pointed out that this was not true. Lulunoa killed the monster with 1 blow. Moreover, she even destroyed the dungeon wall, which was rumored to be unbreakable. Nell smiled and said that the 2 of them were simply amazing. She had to catch up with them. Before she was erased from the dream of the 3, all kinds of martial arts, all kinds of magic, and all kinds of techniques. Even in her dreams, she continued to search. Lulunoa started bragging, but she asked her to stop. She still couldn't do anything, so she just stopped coming to the Demon King's castle. The turning point came half a year later. Her mother died due to a black magic curse. Her father noticed the curse and found the person who cast it, but he was 1 step too late. By the time the magic caster was found and killed, her mother had already died. Her mother asked Nell to protect this country together with Zara, Lulunoa, and the others. She was sure she could do it because she was their child and she said she loved her. Her mother's will encouraged her to continue. It glued her broken heart and took away her hope of giving up. Nell sat among huge stacks of books and diligently studied magic. She thought about how she should become stronger. Meanwhile, her brother came to her and handed her a book. Nell asked, "Is this black magic?" He asked, "She hasn't studied this yet, right?" She agreed. Because of this, her mother died. He persistently asked, "She wants to become stronger, right?" Nell extended her hand forward and took the book. After that, she dealt with the monster, and Lulunoa said in surprise, "Amazing, she defeated the monster so easily." Zara smiled and remarked, as expected of Nell. She said that it was nothing special and thanked them. Ironically, she had the most unusual talent in the world, a talent for black magic. The power of the curse depends on the hostility, malice, and resentment towards the target. She continued to study information about monsters to improve the effectiveness of black magic. Against those who use magic, she will use the curse of sealing magic. Those who are smart, she will deprive of reason with the curse of berserk. And against a crowd of monsters, she will use the curse of sleeping. She is so happy, and now she will finally be able to fight monsters on par with them. Now she can fulfill the promise she made to her mother. Even if this power destroyed her mother, she does not know when discord settled in her heart, and the only thing she can say is that this discord changed her beyond recognition. Nell looked at the animal in fear and exclaimed, "This is a wolf of the burial mound and we must run." Lulunoa stood in front of her and said that there was no need for that. A magic seal appeared near her finger, which she placed on the wolf's head. Nell looked at it in admiration and thought, what a beautiful magic. The gap between her and Lulunoa did not shrink at all. While she was studying magic, she perfected her beautiful magic. Lulunoa said that it was not easy because he was so huge. Zara exclaimed in admiration, "It was so amazing. She defeated the wolf of the burial mound." She said quite happily, "Everything was exactly like that," and asked her to praise her more. "And Nell doesn't think so?" She wondered if she smiled normally. Suddenly a snake appeared in front of them, and Lulunoa said in fear that she hated snakes and asked them to do something. Nell smiled mysteriously and thought that she too could defeat the monster and asked them to rely on her. She stretched out her hand forward and black magic burst out from her hand. This was the first time she used ultra black magic. Thought, life, reproductive functions. This forbidden art, even skills could seal the curse of incapacitation. However, did her magic go out of control? Suddenly, there was an explosion and a black atmosphere appeared around her. Nell thought that everything was fine. Black magic only worked on those she had a grudge against. Suddenly, she noticed that Lulunoa had lost consciousness, and Zara called out to her in fear. A voice in her head said that the necessary conditions had been met, and the Arcana inheritance was taking place. The mandatory condition was to use black magic on the life of a blood relative. Nell screamed in fear and thought about how this was the first time she received a special name. 2 weeks later, after talking with Lulunoa in the Demon King's castle, Altid apologized to Ruto for calling him so suddenly. This is Duke Ridalka, his younger brother and Nell's father. Ridalka said that he was glad to meet them, and he came to talk about her. He asked about Nell. Ridalka noted that the matter was urgent and he could only ask him for help. But before he started talking, he wanted to make sure of something. Was he ready to die for Lulunoa? The protagonist agreed. That's what he wanted. If he had to die, it would be for her. Ridalka stood in front of the protagonist and he asked in confusion what he was doing. Ridalka said that he wanted him to risk his life, since the huge sky hole was one of the 5 great dungeons unknown to mankind. He asked to save Nell, since she was heading there. Dungeons are the original source of monsters in various parts of the continent, Many dungeons were destroyed by adventurers who attacked them and destroyed the core located at the very heart, which caused the invasion of monsters. However, there have long been dungeons, the very essence of which no one has yet managed to penetrate. Babylon, an abandoned city, an underground city, a sea temple, and a huge hole in the sky. Rumor has it that in the very depths of the huge hole there is a panacea elixir, a divine medicine that can cure any illness, wound, or curse. Nell believed in this legend and went there alone. MC asked because she wants to remove Lulunoa's incapacitation curse. Radalka noted that he knew. Since she is a spellcaster, it was a problem for her to remove it right away, but the remnants of the curse still remained. It seems that she was too small to cope with the curse that broke out uncontrollably. The huge hole in the sky appears in the sky once every 6 months, and thanks to its powerful magical barrier that protects from penetration from the outside and often from appearing, it is considered impregnable. However, there are exceptions for whom the barrier is not an obstacle, and these are the owners of the Arcana. Ruto exclaimed, "So that's why it had to be him." Radalka said that this dungeon is extremely dangerous, and there is no way Nell will get out alive if she goes alone. The curse will be lifted once she dies, so whether she gets the panacea or not doesn't matter. That's probably what she wants, but he still wants his daughter to live. This is a selfish parental wish and also an order given by Lulunoa. A girl who is not even 10 years old told him not to let Nell die because of her. The protagonist thought that Lulunoa was, as always, in her element, so he will go there. Radalka thanked him with a trembling voice. Now they have 4 Arcana wielders who will conquer the huge sky hole, so it's worth watching. The protagonist listed Nell, he and Zara, but Lulunoa won't be able to fight. Suddenly the door opened loudly, and Altid said irritably, "Just in time." He asked the MC to show her everything on the way to Zara's room. Red Collis shouted, "Well, the Demon King, here she comes." And now, as he promised, let her fight Zara. Altid said that this is their assistant from the Elven Kingdom, Red Collis, Chariot. Meanwhile, they walked along the corridor and she asked, "So he will also go to the dungeon? Then he must be a master. How about a duel before leaving?" Ryudo apologized. He is just a servant. They came to Zara's room, when suddenly Red Collis began to knock on it with all her might. She said that she came for revenge. Zara excitedly asked, "Why is she here?" Zara opened the door without clothes, and seeing Ryuto behind Red Collis, she closed the door in fear. He apologized shamefully. He was very sorry. Zara ordered him not to look, since he was sorry. Red Collis kindly asked her to fight her, but she asked her to calm down right now. A few minutes later in the room, Zara said that she took the liberty of thinking of Nell as a sister, so she would try her best. Red Collis pointed out that they would be heading to the giant hole in the sky on the griffin she had brought. She thought that it would be better to make a plan after sorting out the situation inside. She thought there were no objections. To her, it was just a giant hole in the sky, and she was more interested in Zara and the demon in the black suit. According to rumors, he had completely routed the S-rank adventurer party. Moreover, it seemed that he had also trained the burial mound wolf, who had a deep connection with them, the elves, and smelled like an incredibly strong man. Ryuto uncomfortably thought about not saying that it was him. He was almost certain that it would be very troublesome. Zara asked, "So she came to fight her and that demon?" Red Collis exclaimed, "That's right, and if the demon is as strong as she hopes, she will make him her husband. But what a surprise, she is so warlike, and to think that she fell for a weak servant." Zara asked discontentedly, "A weak servant?" Even though she said it, it was unpleasant and asked her to take it back. Red Collis looked at her questioningly, "So she really fell in love?" Zara looked at the protagonist and asked sarcastically, "With him? Never in her life." She put her hand on his shoulder and asked, "Then she does not mind if she takes him to the Elven Kingdom?" Suddenly, Zara's sword made a sound, and Red Collis laughed and said that she was joking. She has a very murderous mood and asked her to fight as soon as they finish with the huge sky hole. MC looked at them in bewilderment and thought that he was somehow uneasy. After that, preparations for the trip began. The protagonist thought, "I wonder what Nell is thinking about now?" Judging by what he heard from Lulunoa, they almost never talked about it. Nell's actions are clearly dictated by a sense of guilt towards her. But this is not selflessness, but self-sacrifice, just like he did during their first meeting with Lulunoa. So even if he has to drag her out of there by force, he will not leave her alone, just as Lulunoa did not leave him. She sadly asked, "Is he leaving soon?" She has a lot to say and doesn't want him and Zara to go to such a dangerous place, but she also wants to save Nell. Is she too selfish? Ryuto said that it is his order to facilitate her selfishness. She is his precious meaning of life. Lulunoa asked him to quickly return her stupid sister to her. After a while, they were flying in the sky, and Red Collis said that a little more and they will find themselves where a giant hole appears. Zara noticed, "In just one day, the griffins are really amazing." She agreed. The speed and endurance of the wyverns can't compare. Zara exclaimed discontentedly that he was too close. He awkwardly removed his hands and apologized. He was afraid that he would fall if he let go. Red Collis smiled and said that there was no need to apologize and asked to look at her face. Zara asked discontentedly, should she smear her to the entrance of the dungeon? The protagonist noticed a shadow above him and looked up. Red Collis was surprised and said, "Here it is, a huge hole in the sky." Suddenly, they saw Nell in the sky and she quickly rushed forward. Ruto gritted his teeth and thought that, at this rate, she would be inside before they could catch up with her. He stood up and Red Collis asked, did he decide to jump? He said that he would help them and used enchantment magic. A gust of wind. His body became so weightless, after which he jumped forward and grabbed the griffin by the tail, on which Nell was sitting. She asked in surprise, "What is he doing?" MC asked discontentedly. "Idiot, what is she doing?" Nell asked discontentedly, "Is she an idiot?" Suddenly, the griffin threw them off its back and they flew down. Ruto used a magical barrier and grabbed her by the waist, saying that he will not leave her alone. A voice in the sky said that the test begins and they pass through the Arcana barrier. The random transfer is complete and the goal is the black celestial sphere. Meanwhile, the protagonist's body was flying in zero gravity. He asked that he cannot move. What is happening to him? He is in a huge hole in the sky with Nell. The dragon asked, finally noticed, hanged? The protagonist noticed, he is the dragon who talked to him. He asked, so he already knew about him? He is one of the 3 great dragons, ISEKAI'D, a dragon man. He is unconscious at the destination and the demon who woke up earlier is worried about him. MC asked him to explain the situation. Okay, he is with Nell. Where are the other 2? The dragon replied that they are both somewhere in the great sky hole. He replied, then you need to get up and join them. The dragon asked him to listen to him since he's going to clean up this place. The Great Sky Hole, formerly known as the Black Sky Sphere, is a laboratory created by Archon, a powerful mysterious force that has existed in this world since ancient times, which is elusive like a cloud, which some have tried to uncover. The Emperor, Empress, High Priest, High Priestess, and Hermit. In ancient times, they created a place for their research, an endless space, namely, the Black Sky Hole. The experiments conducted there are beyond description, full of cruelty, wisdom, and tyranny. Living beings of all races, abilities, bloodlines, and even demons were locked in the Black Celestial Sphere and forced to interbreed with each other. In the end, they were repeatedly exterminated by curses. After countless deaths, the patterns of Archon's appearance, God's gift, and inheritance were revealed. Archon did everything they could to hide the existence of the Black Celestial Sphere. Due to a certain risk that even they were afraid of, the Black Celestial Sphere was abandoned to its fate. However, the huge amount of residual magic power turned it into a living dungeon. This brings them to the reason why they came here. Through brutal experiments, from the corpses of many creatures, a cure for the curses of all wounds and diseases was created. That is what a panacea is. He thinks it is so cruel, and they talked about it a little earlier, didn't they? The reason Archon abandoned this place long ago is due to the guardians of the core of the Black Celestial Sphere dungeon. The reason why so many Arcana were scattered across the huge hole in the sky remains a mystery to this day. This monster was a G-rank gremlin. Ruto said he thought that G-rank was weak. The dragon replied that it was not weak at all. It was a defective creature with a brain so big that it could not even stand on its own feet, much less survive. Like many others, they were trapped in these terrible rooms, and all but 3 disappeared without a single drop of blood or piece of flesh. The abnormal evolution is called the King of Hunger, or the Emperor of Poisonous Insects. Its power is immeasurable, and this is the cage it is kept in. The protagonist asked how to fight it. The dragon said that it was time for him to get up. Their goal was to completely conquer the Black Celestial Sphere, and he would support him so that he would not die. Suddenly he heard Nell calling him, and opening his eyes, he called out to her. Nell said that he was incredibly reckless, and she was so worried about him. Is he okay? The protagonist agreed. Everything seemed okay. She smiled and remarked that she was glad to hear it, and then suggested that he first meet Zara and Red Callus, and then find a way out. Ruto looked around and asked in confusion, a way out? And what about the panacea? Nell answered that it was her duty, so she was not going to involve anyone else. The MC asked, was she going to conquer this place alone? Nell agreed with a smile on her face. She's very strong, isn't she? Ruto asked excitedly, no one has managed to conquer this dungeon yet? Does she want to do it alone? Nell awkwardly turned away and agreed. The protagonist noted that if she really wanted to do this, then she should look him in the eye and tell him the truth. The real reason she was here was not the panacea at all? Nell asked. What was he talking about? He replied that the panacea was fine, but she had never intended to return home and had come here to die? She asked with displeasure. Did Lulunoa tell him? She couldn't forgive herself. The protagonist said that he was angry too, but it wasn't about the past. He asked, did she really think this would be best for Lulunoa? Nell clutched her dress with her hand and agreed. Ruto shouted. Lulunoa said that her abilities were more important than her. Did she really think that she would be happy if she died? Nell exclaimed. That's why it was like this. He should have just killed her, and then she wouldn't have to watch Lulunoa continue to suffer because of her. But no one blamed her. On the contrary, she asked her for forgiveness, although it was because of her curse that she couldn't use magic. MC noted that when everyone around her forgave her, all that was left was her own guilt, so all she could think about was death. Nell said with tears in her eyes that she also wanted to die, but she had no other choice. She just couldn't forgive herself. Nell hung her head down and asked them to leave her alone. He asked why she didn't just tell them how she felt. She asked with displeasure, what was he talking about? Neither talking nor apologizing would change anything. The protagonist said that all they wanted was to be with Lulunoa, Zara, and the other people dear to her in the Demon King's castle. He was sure that was why she apologized. Even if he had no right to say this, he understood her. Before meeting Lulunoa, he also wanted to be useful to others, but nothing worked out and he kept trying to get out of it. But before he had time to come to his senses, he wanted to end his life. And now he understands this, but then he simply ran away, so death is the easiest way. It may take a lot of courage, but why shouldn't she try? Not to get forgiveness, but to boldly face the past and be honest with it. Ruto extended his hand to her and asked her to overcome the huge hole and return to them together. Nell extended her hand in response and looked at him with tears in her eyes. The protagonist mentally called out to the dragon and said that he knew that he had been eavesdropping all this time. He asked what he wanted. The protagonist said decisively that he was going to kill all the demons in this dungeon, so he should help him. The dragon said that the more famous and powerful enemies he defeated, the higher he would climb and the more benefit he would get from his trial. The protagonist asked if he could influence the power of the arcana. He replied that if you think about it, he was so eloquent that he did not want to lose it and asked to open the status window. This is the seed he planted that makes it possible to rewrite the Archon mechanism itself once and for all. MC looked at the status window and noticed that the test can be completed in the reverse state and there is no time limit. Is it possible to have such absurd abilities? The dragon warned that this is a one-time trump card and in fact he wanted to save it for later, but it can't be helped. You will make him the strongest in the Black Celestial Sphere. Ruto asked, the strongest? A little rude, don't you think? The dragon laughed, but he is already the strongest and he guarantees it. It's time to activate. What will he choose? He asked. What will he choose? He already knows the answer. Nell asked, will he really go if something happens to him? The protagonist called out to her. He said a lot, but in fact, everything is very simple. If she tries to throw herself into the arms of death, he will definitely stop her and protect her from evil demons. He won't let her die, or rather, he won't allow her to do so. Although, it may be arrogant of him. The status window said that the conditions necessary for activation based on arrogance are confirmed and the level is sufficient. The magic power is sufficient and the conditions are met, so reverse is activated. At such a moment, thoughts come to mind about the genius of this man, who always tries to be stronger than everyone else. The status window noticed that the magical reaction of the sun in the body is confirmed and the magic power is sublimated. A transition to the reverse state occurs. MC held out his sword in front of him and said, for the sake of his mistress, he ascends to heaven and earth. In the light of the moonlit night, his blade will pierce the curse and dispel it. He has wings of green steel, a tail of black gold, a ring of white keys. He oppresses everyone and steps over the divine throne. He is a blasphemer. The dragon laughed, so that's why he is the hanged man. They will try to make him the strongest. The protagonist said that he will become the strongest and protect everyone. Meanwhile, Zara and Red Callus fought with monsters. She looked around and said that everything looked ugly, but it was not what it seemed. Zara replied that it seemed like the area had been cleared. Do you think they were safe? Red Callus replied that she did not know. It was not often that all the demon princesses gathered together, but she knew him better than her. Didn't she? Zara put her hand on her heart and mentally asked the protagonist to be careful. Red Callus stopped near the door and said that someone was fighting on the other side of the door. Zara asked if it was Ruto. He opened the door, and they noticed that the monsters had surrounded Makino and Hiragi. She asked him with displeasure to do something, since her plants could not protect him anymore. Makino fearfully noted that he was trying, but there were too many of them. Suddenly, a monster tore her plants apart but was immediately defeated. They noticed Zara and Red Callus in front of them. She asked with displeasure, who are they, and what are they doing here? Hiragi smiled and thanked them. They were from the Lux Empire and suddenly appeared here. Makino noted that there were even demons here, and he didn't know what he would do without them, but they were very lucky to meet such cute girls. What was her name? Zara put a sword to his head and ordered him to only answer questions, otherwise she would leave him without a head. Hiragi grabbed Makino and began to apologize. She was Hiragi, and this idiot was Makino, and they were from another world. Makino smugly asked, have they really not heard of them? Hiragi noted that they were heroes from another world, summoned by Lux to save this world.